the question that I threw back at you was, you know, from the answers you are getting from my colleagues here. So,
no, we have not spoken anything.
Are you saying that
Raila, the ones to rebut?
I'm not suggesting anyone else can do
has
it.
the moral authority.
I'm not suggesting anything, but I just said the president came out last week and said he has done enough, but you're seeing all these things happening.
Yesterday, I watched Dennis Itumbi. Very exciting on JKL. I didn't agree with everything, but he had very useful punchlines. You know, this is a question where we're telling that person, stop committing adultery. And he's saying, but I think you were around people who were committing it before. You know, they're justifying an obvious political responsibility with people who are in the political opposition, who have an obvious obligation constitutionally to oversight them. You know, so you start spinning it to Raila Odinga. He even said I was in the KNCHR, so I was in the former government. I was in a government agency that was one of the most credible in terms of human rights audit or human rights corruption. So I think what happens is, I think the justification by Kimani Wamatangi, our dear senator colleague, is extremely flawed. Talking about maybe it would not be nice, right, for also to give him to hand over, talk about how we stood, or the parliament stood in standing ovation for the presidency, is on that pretext that he was going to act and act honestly on all those matters that were proclaimed from you know, the fund, the unequivocal apology for all past human rights violations, the fund for compensation in terms of, you know, for victims of past human rights violations. None of that has literally been put into motion. Yes. And so therefore this has been rhetoric. So that's why I think in the subsequent State of the Nation, everybody start with utter you know, disregard for what the president was saying, because they did not believe that there will be implementation. Well, Matangi, let me tell you this. We live in a country where some of our friends are ardent supporters of Jubilee. We cannot distinguish who we associate with on the mere basis of political affiliation. We talk with them privately. They are fed up with the corruption. Yes. They are, the country is hurting. The country is reeling out of the pain of
Senator Halwale,
so even our friends in Jubilee,
you gave the president a standing ovation and applauded him.
Fed up, my brother.
Yes. That's the point. Senator Halwale, you applauded, and
it is true.
Do you think you have any reason right now to applaud the president?
It is true what my brother Wamatangi has said, that Orenga and I, we led the joint sitting of Parliament in giving the president a standing ovation. But what I want to clarify now is that I gave him a standing ovation on his word. I'm yet to see reason why I should give him a standing ovation on his action, because he has done none. The president should have walked the talk that made us give him a standing ovation. He failed. But more importantly, to viewers, the president literally signed away the presidency last week when, while addressing the nation live, he admitted that he had done all that he could do and he couldn't do anything more about corruption. That the president has admitted that he has failed, and that he is unable to rise to the occasion and save the country from corruption. It only begs one thing: who amongst Raila, Wetangula and Kalonzo will take up the mantle and lead this country to a corruption-free society? It is doable. We all remember in this cash cow called the Ministry of Health, the late Joshua Angatia, Minister for Health, was there, and there was no scandal at that time. In fact, Angatia famously told people that these people at Afya House, they are mafia. And that's the time, as in the medical profession, we used to call Afya House Mafia House. Kenneth Matiba was there. There was no scandal. We must acknowledge that corruption can be fought, It has been fought elsewhere in Africa, in history, and currently. In history, Rawlings did it in Ghana successfully. In current days, Magufuli is doing it successfully in Uganda. So, I mean in Tanzania. President Uhuru has admitted he's unable. Let him go home and rest and leave it to us. And I'm not surprised because I've had the opportunity to sit in Parliament.
And I want to bring a point more. A point.
You have a way of cutting me.
Gentlemen, because we need to move on to this story now.
You know, at some point,
yes.
Almost made it appear. You know, he said that oh, this is not a community or whatever, and Halwale told him there is no community being fought.
No,
I can tell you, we have Kikuyu friends.
I said it is not community. It is
we
not
have
political.
Kalenjin friends. They are so disgusted.
completely.
They are Kenyans. First and foremost,
yes,
they will support probably the Uhuru Ruto administration on the basis of our political machinations or ethnic arrangements in our politics, unfortunately. But they are suffering. The businesses are on a slowdown. Things are not working. Services are not there. Taxes, you know, taxation. So they are equally, when they see the frustration, you know, there is that.
Omar, the next demo.
Who said that people who are
the next demo
are not getting
Hassan, the next demo we should consider leading the public into is to ask them to refuse to pay taxes. You cannot continue paying taxes so that it lines up the pocket. And Wamatangi, do you know this is not the last scandal in the ministry? I've spoken to the issue of specialized medical equipment. There's also the audit of the construction or expansion of the Moi Referral and Teaching Hospital.
Let me
serious things which have happened, and they are coming.
Last comment, we need to move on to another story now.
There was a report that was released by the Wananchi Watchdog on corruption in this country the other day, and they were looking at corruption through counties. I'll tell you one thing.
Yes.
The report said that out of the over 1 trillion shillings that have been sent to the devolved units, counties, more than 270 billion has been lost through corruption in the various counties. And that is why you find I take my firm stand on this, that corruption is the biggest mess we have to fight in this country. But we have to be honest in fighting corruption. And corruption, the fight against corruption is not a fight we are going to use to garner political mileage. If we try to do that, our political terms end in a span of 5 years. This corruption has ruined this country since independence up to today. The biggest issue that was there in the elections of 2002, in 2007, from all the way up to now when we have our elections coming, has been corruption. We cannot continue to sing this song. We must make a judgment by acting on it.
Halwale and I are fighting our governance. Largely not because of politics, but because of
corruption.
Yes, indeed, corruption. Indeed, gentlemen, you are trying to put forward.
It is not true to justify that code is not fighting corruption.
I think we're in agreement. Gentlemen, I think we're all in agreement. When it comes to corruption, it's the biggest problem. Gentlemen, we need to move on.
With Senator Wamatangi in Kiambu, when you pretend that you are perpetuating ethnicity by fighting corruption or failure to fight corruption, I remind you of what happened in Kiambu. When I was in Kiambu, I was treated in your company to a hero's reception by the people of Kiambu because I had carried the anti-corruption message on Kiambu County government. I assure you, I will come with the same message against Uhuru in Kiambu, and the people will listen.
You have carried that message. You have carried that message further.
No, now, Wamatangi,
you say
that matter, we put it to rest. Yes, we put it to rest.
That actually the only counties in which a governor has never been brought on impeachment is the Code County.
Okay,
that is what you say.
Okay, gentlemen, now, we'll have to run this story about the wave of disquiet in Jubilee, because these gentlemen have refused to keep quiet. I repeat, a wave of disquiet is sweeping through the Jubilee Party over failure to appoint officials to steer the party affairs almost 2 months after it was launched. Now, away from the corruption story, we need to discuss another story that affects the Jubilee Party and the shenanigans, the fights within the Jubilee Party. Officials from 9 defunct parties that merged into the Jubilee Party are now asking President Uhuru Kenyatta to urgently resolve the matter. Francis Gashuri reports.
The fanfare, glamour and glees that mark the birth of the Jubilee Party. The party President Uhuru Kenyatta has identified as his re-election vehicle in the 2017 general election. But nearly 2 months after the launch, there is growing disquiet among officials of the parties that wound up and merged into the new political outfit. The restlessness triggered by a delay in naming the Jubilee Party officials to steer its affairs.
Sasa wale wafuasi wetu wanapiga kelele, mnafanya nini? Hii inaenda namna gani? Nini mnaongojea? Mbona hatufungui maofisi? Hiyo ndio tunataka hizo vitu ziwe speed.
Leaders from 9 out of the 12 parties that close shop to join into the Jubilee Party have petitioned President Uhuru Kenyatta to convene a meeting to deliberate on the party's future. Under the umbrella of Team 9 or T9, the defunct party officials claim the Jubilee Party's inaction at the grassroots or the scramble for control that has been witnessed in various counties could hurt President Kenyatta's re-election bid. Sources indicate that the president and his deputy were yet to agree on the list of officials and were apprehensive of a fallout since there was intense jostling for the top slots.
Kwani watu wataenda kutafuta mbinguni? Si tumekuwa kwa hii siasa tunajuana. Hao watu wako hapa duniani na ni kama ni chama ya Lusaka anajua ni nani mzuri anaweza weka pale asukume. Kama ni chama ya Kalembe najua ni nani mwingine anaweza ongezea asukume. Hizi tunajuana. Alafu wale president na deputy wake tuwape hata hiyo timu kubwa wabebe. But tunataka kitu ambayo inasonga.
The leadership has not yet come out, with that national structure. But we are waiting. And I'm asking our colleagues to be a little more patient. It is not a very easy task.
And as the wind of anxiety blows in the Jubilee Party, 2 parties that rejected the merger push, PNU and KANU, stand to gain from any fallout. More so, the scramble for the Jubilee ticket in the Kenyatta route of political strongholds. With the amended Political Parties Act barring party hopping, aspirants who fear that the Jubilee nominations will not be free and fair are likely to decamp to KANU or PNU, as well as other friendly parties.
To have an option in politics so that you are able to exercise your rights. It's a constitutional right. I think there is nothing unfair about that.
Watu wajipange. Either in the ruling party or you organize for yourself to be in opposition. Hii nyingine kelele ndogo ndogo, you are going to see is going to finish in no time.
For now, Murungi insists there is no crisis in Jubilee, though he acknowledges that anxiety over the naming of officials should be dealt with expeditiously by the president and his deputy, who are the only 2 officials in the party. Francis Gashuri, Public First News.
Yes, Senator Kiraitu Murungi insists there is no crisis in Jubilee, but where there is smoke, there is fire. And that same headline on page 8 of the Standard, Jubilee fights to stem discontent over lack of interim party officials. And they have a quote from leader of majority Aden Duale. He says, those leaders claiming to represent their defunct parties are lost.
Totally.
They are lost. So even Kalembe Ndile, they are complaining, is lost. People like Governor Lusaka, who has complained, is lost. Governor Nderitu Gachagua from GNU is lost. John Kamama, Albert Nyaundi, Ford People, Ben Washiali, Hassan Osman, UDF, they are all lost, according to leader of majority Aden Duale. But surely, with the re-emergence of PNU, because now PNU is no longer part of Jubilee Party, and it is clear they're holding their National Delegates Conference soon to actually decide their way forward, members of Jubilee do have a real option, especially in the Mount Kenya region. In the Rift Valley, they still have KANU. Yeah? Of course, this causes a problem for the Jubilee formation.
One, let me state that most of those individuals you see agitating for the list of members to be named who are going to be leading the party. It's understandable because some of them had expectations.
Yes.
That they may be named to be leaders or to be office holders in the new party. And that speaks for their individual ambitions. But when the party, Jubilee, joined with all the other parties to form now that this one party of Jubilee, the picture was bigger than just having a few individuals sitting in certain offices. We had a bigger agenda of revolutionizing the political movement and structure of this country. And the point that everybody must see and understand is that it is not fathomable now in the future that the party would move anywhere without leadership, without people holding offices. The point is the hurry that is expositioned by the agitation right now. I would just want to say to all that have that feeling that it pays to be patient. They have to be patient. This party must eventually have its office bearers. That's the way we want to go as Jubilee. And on the hyped or talked about disquiet or problems in Jubilee because that one is talking or this one is talking, I want to assure you that the last thing that will happen in Jubilee is to see any of those perceived either discontent or infighting within the party. That's not going to be there. The party is intact.
Okay, yeah. But clearly it could have the converse effect as well, because you know that even this internal party agitation for leadership and could actually lead up to a more stronger Jubilee party. Don't you think, Senator Halwale?
I think, to the president's mind and his deputy, Jubilee was a noble idea. However, the outcome, to my mind, is as follows: that Jubilee has ended up consolidating the president's hold on the Mount Kenya region, as evidenced by the collapse of the Kenya National Congress of Peter Kenneth and Kenneth carving in, by the collapse of the Grand National Union of Mwangi Junjuri and Mwangi Junjuri carving in, to the extent that it is only Martha Karua, the only man remaining standing in Mount Kenya. Otherwise, Uhuru has completely consolidated his hold on Mount Kenya. But unfortunately for my good brother, Deputy President, he's miles far behind in attempting to consolidate the politics of Rift Valley. If anything, it has given life and impetus to Mashinani Party of Isaac Ruto, and more importantly, to KANU, which not only has structures in Rift Valley, but even nationally. It also has the money of the Moi family. I don't think Gideon has got any money. Gideon, just like Uhuru, they don't have any money. They have just walked into money that was assembled by their dynasties. That particular factor, Uhuru will come to live to realize that that decision only made him the chief of Mount Kenya, but completely made him lose any appeal to the rest of the country.
One thing I want to agree with Duale on this one. They are lost, totally lost. Duale is telling them the truth.
Yes.
Their mandate, their relevance ended on 9th and 10th of September 2016, the year of our Lord. Period. Whatever else they were thinking, they were going. Look at that Kalembe deal. Apatiwe aitwaje pesa kafungue sijui ofisi mashinani sijui nini. You know, I mean, it ended on that day. Kalembe Ndile is irrelevant as far as the politics of Jubilee is concerned. He's lost. Yeah, that's what it means. That's what, even when you see when even the Deputy President William Ruto during Mashujaa Day acknowledged the supremacy of CORD and Wiper in Machakos through that invite, and we even handed over You know, everybody.
Those people.
Those people. Even we handed over the governor. So what happens, he's actually right. You know, Duale, Duale sometimes articulates things they have in a casual conversation. You know, the way I can tell you in the Muli, you know, how to jinga, so Duale contextualizes it and puts it in raw form that these people are totally lost. If Kalembe had expected some robust relevance, his relevance, he was given his few minutes of fame. He went there and did his usual, you know, clown act, and therefore that was it. So I think what is now left is Ruto and Uhuru, who have now a party for 2017. And you know, you guys have to fight for other slots because they will be dominant and there are other in certain areas. But it's done.
On that issue,
you agree with Wale that these people
are they lost? I don't know why it's a big issue. It's not a big issue. I mean, him saying that they're lost. It's not a big issue. I mean, you know why? Because understandably, understandably, and logically, that's why I'm saying it's not a big deal. I don't know what's there to really talk about.
Yes.
You know,
totally lost.
When the parties folded, they held their own their own NDCs, and they signed. Their leadership was over there, signed that we have consulted and decided to dissolve, not to dissolve to die, but to dissolve to join a bigger party called Jubilee. And they all did so collectively. And now they are all there in one party. You know, to the extent that if one is thinking in the context of the mind before the act, that is when you would be misguided. But when you are thinking in the current scenario of where you are, because these people now, Kalembe Ndile is a member of Jubilee. The other individuals who led the other parties that dissolved are members of Jubilee now. You know, lawfully and legally.
So they cannot
so you know, you cannot be arguing, thinking, or making political statements outside that fact. So that's what I'm saying. That's also saying that I don't think that it's really an issue.
I want to agree with you that
totally lost.
These people who dissolved their parties, they should swallow their pride. It's over. They are now members of Jubilee. Yes, the Jubilee bed is a bed of thorns, but my brother Ben Washiali, Lusaka, Eugene Omalu and others, you made that bed of thorns. Go and lie in that bed and keep quiet.
But does God have a bed in the first place? I mean, to even
we have a bed of roses.
Even you start talking about bed. You're not even sleeping. You don't even have a house. You have nowhere to sleep. You live alone bed, man. So first build a house, buy furniture, and then talk about sleeping.
If let's say you are power, and there's this notion of speaking truth to power. Trust me, Omatange, in the next election, you'll be seated there as an opposition legislator. I'm telling you, what you know, these things, you know what has happened?
Yes.
You might have your little piece. The real tyranny of numbers, this time around, will be the Kenyans who are disgusted with where their country is headed.
With this scandals?
And this kind of scandals, the real tyranny of numbers within
my friend
Kenyans
has a normal,
will be committed to removing Jubilee power. Listen, let me tell you. I know that
you're only having a feud today because you have seen Jubilee there in the newspapers. But the story of who called is not lost. I mean, the fact that there are issues about to be talked about Jubilee here does not mean that it has changed the scenario, the reality of what is in courts. I mean, the problem are you trying to say? Are you trying to create an impression here that because there is an issue of Jubilee that the battle that you yourself, as a senator, you've been here on this screen, is saying that Wiper will be on its own. If you're not allowed to do this, you're not going to be there. My colleague there, my friend Senator Halwale, has been on this screen here. In fact, I remember one time him being shown on TV saying that I want to tell my friend, go and fight Raila, fight Raila. I mean, I mean, their problems are not washed away by the fact that their issues
in the Muli. What's wrong with fighting for the ticket? In the Muli, what's wrong with fighting for the coalition ticket? Exactly what he's saying. I mean, the fight is about the presidential candidates.
Yes.
We are all stating our stakes loud, clear, and firm. Once that challenge is surmounted, which it will.
Which challenge?
The one of naming a presidential flag bearer.
My brother, the challenge is that you don't have a party.
Kenyan public. We don't have a party, we have a coalition. And that coalition is acceptable within the framework of law. The minute we say who this flag bearer is going to be, my brother, it is 9th of August, Kenyans will be waking up to a result that ushers in a new government.
Okay, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our news review, but as you give your very final comments, there's a story on page 26 of the Standard where 7 governors from counties in northern Kenya and the coast have agreed to come together to take a common approach to uplift the living standards of their residents. These are 7 governors speaking after unveiling the Frontier Counties Development Council, FCDC, in Marsabit. Governors from the 2 regions said the new alliance would address the common challenges facing marginalized communities. They're already grouping themselves into one. Because don't you think, as you make your final comments, don't you think we're going back to the provinces?
I want to congratulate those governors. They are now admitting to what most of us defended on the lead up to the new constitution. We said devolution was not only good, but it had to be structured in such a way that a county should be a unit that would have economic sense. Many of the counties we have today are not economically viable. I want a situation whereby we reduce these counties to at most 14 counties. So that when a governor is a governor, he's a governor of a county that is viable, that is going to raise its own revenue, and then that revenue be even more than the amount of money you get from the national government. Are you suggesting
that these 7 governors should actually come up with one county and say one of them is actually their leader?
No, not that way. It would mean we go back to the people, a referendum, so that we reduce the number of counties. I would support that kind of initiative.
The next referendum must be about reducing the number of counties. Period.
Yep.
I think we must bite the bullet. They are just too many.
Yes.
They are not making economic sense. They are big. That's why the audit by the same Auditor General Auko said that Kenyans, the wage bill is so high. You do not need assemblies, 47 county assemblies, 47 counties for a country that has a population of about 40 million or so. So we need to retrace our steps. We must bite the bullet. We must have the political courage. We must reduce counties. But this is a step in the right direction. These are some of the counties I'm most passionate about: Marsabit, Isiolo, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu. But one thing they must also go beyond is this perception that development is only about infrastructure. That's a Jubilee template to try and deceive you. That development is about a standard gauge railway. It's about human development index. It's about the dignity of your people. And these are the same of the areas that have been most marginalized and most indignified. And therefore they must now look at more fundamental issues that affect them: water, education, sanitation, housing, the things that afford health, that afford every person that dignity and create and spurs the productivity of that person. So they should not be captives. And then this is also another extraordinary story. Halwale has been saying it. Mboni Mtetezi, CS advises county to lower tax on local traders. What it means is that the counties have been overtaxing mamambogas. They have put a burden on the borders. We need to have a template law. These are the people who must be given a safety haven in terms of taxation, and not to overburden them. Most governors are just casual. They're just what is it called? They're just very obvious. You want to raise more money, you start going to overtax the border and the mamamboga. You take 800 shillings from that lady in a month. that is almost 30% of her sales. So I think what we need is to create a regime that we are justiciable in our taxation structure. And these are some of the issues. You should stop this kind of, taxation that overburdens our local traders, particularly the small-scale traders.
Finally, Senator Wamatangi.
Yeah, I think that unity, the formation of blocks, and let's remember, I think this is probably, if my memory is right, maybe the fourth block to be formed. There was one from some of the counties, I think, in
Lake Basin.
Then there was another one in the ones in
County of
the coast one. There's one also that was being formed by the ones in the Rift Valley. and I think if these coalitions, or rather if the blocks are being formed to foster development, to create synergy between the counties, then it's a good thing.
You agree that you should probably reduce the number of counties?
But if it is formed for other reasons, especially, like where they're saying that we look alike. I mean, look alike like we have common things that like we talk the same dialect or this kind of thing. Then that's a poor agenda. It will not go anywhere. But I also agree that we are spending too much money in paying government officers, in paying county heads and so on. The wage bill is unsustainable for this country, paying all the legislators that we are paying. So we have to deal with that squarely. But let me also say, because Senator Omar says that governors should be well advised not to think that infrastructure is the only way to develop counties. Maybe, I mean, it could be understandable with Senator Omar's background. I mean, he's a human rights person. But from really, a development conscious person, the first things that you learn in economics is that if you deny infrastructure in any community, if you don't have roads, if you don't have communication between people, then you cannot develop those people, whichever way you look at it. So so infrastructure is key in making sure that we reach and I think that's the agitation even those marginalized counties have been having. They're saying we don't have roads, so let's build roads. I think it's the correct way to go.
Well, the senators have spoken. Thank you so much, Senators Boni Halwale from Kakamega County, Hassan Omar from Mombasa County, and Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu County, helping us look at the headlines this morning. And don't go away.